Hey everybody, welcome to week 6, February 14th through the 20th. So we have a little bit of an overlap of the first and second units because I extended the deadline for the literacy narrative final revision to the 15th, but we're also getting a head start on the second unit. So as I said, we're in week 6. So let's take a look at the overview and readings. This week we have a short selection way back from chapter 2 entitled Genres and How Writers and Readers Depend on Them. And that will give you a little bit of a foundation of what genre is all about. And then we are jumping ahead to chapter 6 with an essay by Doug Downs, one of the editors for our textbook, called Rhetoric: Making Sense of Human Interaction and Meaning Making. So you'll see this theme of meaning making that I'm trying to kind of weave throughout our course. It's a big thing with me, if you haven't figured that out already. I did my undergraduate work in philosophy, and I'm really hooked on this whole idea of making meaning and how we know the things that we know. And it's a branch of philosophy that's called epistemology. And we'll talk about that very briefly, I hope, as I cover some vocabulary that we're going to be working with in this unit. There's another reading that I've made available for you. It's recommended, not required. If you have time and you're gung-ho to learn more about genre, there is a professor, he's a British guy from the University of Michigan, I believe, and his name is John Swales, and he wrote this book in the 1990s, 1990 in fact, called Genre Analysis. Title of our unit, English in Academic and Research Settings. So I actually have a copy of just a portion of the third chapter, chapter 3.5, where Swales kind of outlines the variety of things that comprise genre. But the final page of that section is a paragraph that I think you should read that's called Genre Defined. I'm not going to read it for you, but that kind of distills what he has written about in those pages that is in this handout. So it's recommended, but not required. However, there is this lovely little video that Professor Swales has done explaining genre and English for academic purposes. So this is a lecture. Instead of me lecturing you on genre, I thought it would be best to get it from a fellow who has done lots of research and writing on genre and genre analysis, Professor Swales. So please do watch this little video. I think it's probably about 15 minutes or so. Not super long, and it's just really some great information right from Swales. And we will be reading some other things from genre analysis in the final discourse communities unit. So those are the readings and the lectures. So the to-do list, of course, you're watching this overview now. I also recommend that you watch the Unit 2 overview, where I give you a broad introduction to the genre analysis project that we'll be doing over the next several weeks. Please make sure you complete the readings, take notes on your readings. There is a journal assignment that's due this week. It is syllabi analysis, and then you'll choose a genre for the project and start collecting samples in preparation for next week. So if we move through the module, you'll see there's this PDF for that reading from Swales, as well as a PDF that's called the Analysis Heuristic. It's quite a mouthful. This genre analysis heuristic matrix, which is developed from a list of questions that the writing scholar Anne Beaufort, in her book, College Writing and Beyond, has come up with to help with genre analysis. Then we get to the journal number 3, the syllabi analysis. So after we've done a little bit of genre analysis in my hopefully short lecture, you'll get an idea of how to start analyzing genres. So now I want you to analyze a few syllabi. So you read through this and answer some of the questions. You can use the heuristic as well. And that will be due on February 20th, and that's worth 10 points, but that's a journal assignment. So that said, let me just dip a little bit into talking about the readings so that you can get a good little overview. So in Chapter 2, they talk about genre. So of course we need to define what genre is. And I just pulled a quote from page 34 of the text that defines genre as recognizable forms of writing that respond to repeating situations. So if you think about genre, we typically think about genre as, you know, in the literary sense, but it's really has been broken open. And in that lecture by Professor Swales, he goes into detail and he talks about the various types of genres that there are in the world now. So another thing that pops up in your reading is this concept of genre systems. So genre systems, you can think of those as being sets of genres interacting to achieve an overarching function with an activity within an activity system. And that's actually a definition from Amy Debit, who is another writing scholar. And what did I want to show you? Oh, in the book, there is this lovely little chart that kind of shows you the idea of the genre system, right? We have the genre system, which is comprised of genre sets, the 3 various genre sets, and then all the different genres underneath that comprise, and they're all interacting in some way in this wider genre system. And I am not sharing my screen here. So let me share so you know what I'm talking about. I'm showing my, moving my mouse cursor, my mouse all around, and you're not seeing what I'm talking about. So here is the chart, and that's found in chapter 2 in that section that I have assigned for you to read. But yeah, so we have the large genre system and then all these various things that are interacting together, which I just thought was a kind of a cool graphic. So that's genre systems. So you can think of the genre system as being comprised of a variety of genre sets like we saw in that graphic, and they're made up of a variety of genres, then they're in communication or interaction with one another. So if we jump ahead to chapter 6 and what Doug Downs has written for us, there's a whole bunch of vocabulary that you have to deal with. And don't let that deter you from working through the reading, because it really is intended for students. It's not an academic piece written for other writing scholars. It's written with the intention for students to read it and to get a grasp on what rhetoric is and why we do it and why we should care, right? So first of all is this term that you've probably heard before and that you've probably used yourselves if you've taken English at UC, if you took 1001 or some version of Comp 1, is this thing called the rhetorical situation. So the rhetorical situation is a set of circumstances of a given instance or discourse. So it's comprised of a variety of things. We have the exigence, which is the need that gives rise to the writing, right? It's kind of like the motivation of why we're writing in the first place. Then we have the context, and those are all these circumstances that surround the reader as well as the audience, such as time, location, situation, so on and so forth. We have that context, the stuff that's going on around us. Then, of course, we have the rhetor, which is the writer or the speaker. And we have the audience. And as I said before, the audience is affected by those things that are happening around us. So the rhetor can be affected by, what race they are, age, gender. There are all these various things, life experience. Those all contribute to who we are as writers or speakers, right? But they also contribute to who we are as an audience participant, right? As a reader or as a listener. We come with certain expectations. We've come with a certain set of experiences in our lives. Like I, at 50 something years old, have a different set of experiences than most of you in the class who are much younger. And you come from different walks of life, right? We're all human beings. We all have certain things in common, but then we also have a variety of things that contribute to who we are as people. And that affects us as both writers and as well as audience members. So the rhetorical situation is all of those different things that contribute to the writing or the speaking, what we call discourse. Okay, the next term is rhetorical canons. So think of rhetorical canons as kind of a list or a body of rules which are agreed upon as fundamental to an art, right? So we've all come together and we say, well, there are certain rules that we need for writing, right? In the writing and in oratory, there are 5, according to Aristotle, who is the father of rhetoric. And those are invention, arrangement, style, memory. And memory really is more for speaking than it is for writing, and delivery, right? So invention would be thinking up ideas, brainstorming, coming up with things to write about, right? Arrangement is how you're going to put it together. Style, of course, is how you're going to say it or how you're going to write it. We write in different styles, as we've been examining in our various rhetorical situations, our various writing purposes, memory, and then of course delivery. And in the reading from Downes, he goes through and explains those things in greater detail. Another term is kairos, and that is kind of like thinking about being in the right place at the right time. And those are things that remove some of the agency from the rhetor. So what I mean by some agency is like when you have agency, you have freedom to do whatever you will, but there's certain things that happen in a certain place and a certain time, and that kind of removes some of the freedom from you as a writer. A little hard to think about. The next thing, and this is a new term for me, I've never heard it as pistes, but pistes is logos, ethos, and pathos, or logos, the rhetorical appeals. And that's probably a phrase that's more familiar to you than pistes, but now we're advancing in our understanding of certain rhetorical terms, right? So we call those the proofs in support of an argument, or the appeals that we want to get our audience to come over to our way of thinking, right? Then there's the term rhetorical ecology, which is this interaction between rhetors and all the material of the rhetorical situation. You can think of ecology as kind of this web, right? We have, in environmentalism, we have the ecology of all the various species living together in a certain area, right? And there are these interdependence and interactions between. So if you think of rhetorical ecology as this interaction between the writer or the speaker and all of those things that go into the rhetorical situation, that's what Downes is trying to make you start thinking about in a different way, that, it is this ecology and it's really contingent and depends upon a variety of things. Then there's this new term called embodiment, which is a very interesting aspect of this reading. And Downs talks about, we as writers, as humans who write, we have bodies, right? And that rhetorical interaction depends upon material bodies as well as the ideas that we're trying to get, right? Because if we're just depending on ideas, there's no means of getting it out there. We depend on our bodies as a means of getting what's up here in our heads out into the world, either through our mouths or through our fingers on a keyboard or a pen and a paper, right? So if you think about writing as kind of, there's this embodiment of our ideas. Interesting concept. And then lastly, as I said earlier in this little talk, is epistemic or epistemology. It's that making of knowledge, or how we know what we know. That's that branch of philosophy that I just find absolutely fascinating. So if you think about communication and writing, those are epistemic activities, right? And by that, we mean writing and communication are instances where we make new knowledge, right? If you think about reading something new and you learn something that you may not have known before, you are making new knowledge. And I just think that's such a cool thing. So that is essentially it. Let me see if there was anything else that I need to point out. So as far as Downs is concerned, some of the take-home points that I'd like you to think about are that rhetoric refers both to the principles by which individuals interact and make meaning, and to the use of those principles. And again, with rhetorical ecology, it's a framework for thinking about how particular rhetorical interactions are motivated and situated within a network of interconnected elements that shape the interaction and how meaning arises from it. And lastly, to say something is rhetorical, right? We're battering around this term, rhetorical questions. It's rhetorical situation. To say that something's rhetorical means that it's situated, it's motivated, it's contingent, it's interactional, it's epistemic, right? Making that new knowledge, and it's embodied. It's dependent on our material bodies as well as our ideas. So that is Downs in a nutshell. Okay, so you know that the journal is due on Sunday the 20th. Get your readings done, watch these videos. I have attempted to make these as brief as possible. And if you have any questions or concerns, if the assignment just isn't clear to you, or if you want some more clarification for the genre analysis project as a whole, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Send me an email and ask me questions. I'm happy to make things as clear as possible for you. I'm not always sure that my videos are as clear as they can be. So I try to give you as much information in a variety of places and in a variety of formats. Also, if you are still kind of behind, please reach out to me. I know that there are a few people who have been dealing with COVID, so I just want to make sure that you stay on track, and I will do my best to help you, and I'm trying to be flexible with due dates while still trying to keep you on track. So don't get too far behind, and if something comes up, just get in touch with me, let me know, stay in communication. I am more than happy to be flexible. I want you to be successful in this class. So, I know that life happens and there's some stumbling blocks every once in a while. So it's good to stay in communication with me. Okay. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye.